The body wasn't there. The police didn't arrest me because of that, but I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Sadako had said, I'd failed to kill her uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much, no matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle it might have implied. In order to free Sadako, I became a demon, and this abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I had fallen into the demon world. But if that price had been in exchange for the life of Sadako's uncle, then that would have been fine. Since Sadako's uncle was still alive, still shackling her to him, I needed to become a demon once again. One more time. No, as many times as it took. I would kill that man over and over again until Sadako was liberated. I had already awoken. I looked at the clock to see that it was early in the morning, at just about 5. Where the fuck is Keiichi and Sadako's uncle? A Mion somewhere. It was already light outside. Once I'd hardened my resolve to become a demon again, I could feel my whole body teeming with the awakened power once more. Rose really got the Satsui no Hado. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away, and I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. Wow, I love this doll. Another Mion somewhere. God! I slowly rose and made sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind wander. Had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Sadako's sake, the only thing on my mind has been killing. I've said it was for Sadako. But while actually carrying out the act, I had completely forgotten about Sadako, albeit only temporarily. Maybe initially it was for Sadako's sake, but now I was just a demon, killing for the sake of killing. And as a result, I'd sunk into a world fit for such a demon. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt to save Sadako, became a demon, and disappeared from the sunlit Hinamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. Which meant that after all was said and done, I'd met the same fate as him. I tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway. Which meant that maybe Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me, so he would be here somewhere. Then, surprised, I stopped walking. There was the second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing. Could you be Satoshi? The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer. But I felt a strange kind of relief that there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more. This time, we will set Sadako free for sure. Kiss. Kiss him. This moment is the subject of much fan art, I'm sure of it. I mean, it's gotta be. I quietly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now when I'd been out way too late for 2 days now, they'd give me a really angry talking to. I didn't have the time to allow for that to happen. Today, I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I could just burn it to ashes and take them with me, so I could kill him again every time he resurrected. I'd do it again. I'd kill him again. And this time I'd set her free. Outside, morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to the storage room to find weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world has gone crazy after all. A world where I'd shown up at the festival and had fun even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home as if nothing had happened. Both me and that other Maibara Keiichi. Even without me, he'd fill in. I could vanish from Hinamizawa without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Maibara Keiichi would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Sadako's sake, then this was just part of my duty as her Nini. As those desperate thoughts became serious, morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough. Oh, this one's scary. Let's go with this. It was a hatchet meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. Yeah, no, you called it, Zanji. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I wrapped it in some old newspaper and tossed it into the basket on my bike. Sorry for using you for evil all the time. I'll need you again today, my legs. I apologized to my bike for some reason. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I'd been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I entered cram school, thinking it would be a convenient way to get to the station since it was far away. Rose just got a hatchet covered in newspaper. So I'd always used it to get back and forth from cram school. I'd only ever put textbooks and class materials in the front basket, too. I'd never tried to put a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in here. When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever and had some of the greatest times ever. Those times might have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them back, even if I had to risk my life to do it. That's how fun those times had been. I killed someone, and now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay, but still. The times I'd had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable, and the time spent with them a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing any crime, as long as it was for the sake of taking back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yes. This was a value I'd decided to uphold. It wasn't something I'd learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. I thought back to when I'd first come to Hinamizawa. About how on the very first day, Sadako had welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. Oh god, we're going back to this moment. I'm gonna get sad again. She would laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. That went for Mion, Rena, and Rika-chan too. Wasn't Sadako the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? Sadako would try to look cool. Then Mion would make fun of her endlessly. Then Sadako would cry, which would put Rena in a state of ecstasy. Rika-chan would be greatly delighted. And I happened to get mixed up in it. We would always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have been Sadako. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day, just to maintain my unchanging test scores. So, basically we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. In that case, I was her knight, searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back. Knights, of course, use swords. The awesome two-handed kind. I'm probably the only knight in the history of the world to be taking someone on with a thick, rusty hatchet. Then I saw an old woman in the ridge of the field waving to me. "Oh my, Keiichi-kun. Out for a morning ride, I see." "Good morning." I reflexively waved back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy, waving like that? Hector Fire Emblem. Sadako's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddies. The cicadas had woken up too, and the next thing I knew I was the audience to their daily chorus. I gave myself a hit or two on the head and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath, then tilted my head back, quelling my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. Its absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion, or that I'd killed him and he'd risen from the dead. If I was at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If that had been an illusion, then that would make all of this Hinamizawa I was in right now an illusion. If that was the case, then here's how it would end up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to a traffic accident, and I was currently dreaming in a hospital bed about how great it would be to spend time with friends in rice paddies like these. That was a terrifying thought, though. Coma theory. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he'd resurrected. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less than a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even manipulate curses. Oh, he's in it! Takano-san had died probably because I'd cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach and Oishi died too, like I'd cursed them to yesterday, then I'd believe it. Saji, that is an awful thought. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't here. Of course it wasn't. I sent it down to hell that night, throwing it into the Onigafuchi swamp. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either? The fact his bike wasn't here might have been because he had gone to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it into the swamp. If her uncle wasn't around, then that was convenient on its own. Then I would just show myself in, then wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet. If he was there. He really is forgetting about Sadako. Bro, what if Sadako is there? Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison, dulling my actions, but it could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken to my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet, still wrapped in newspaper. Its weight in my hands was profound, sinister, and reliable. I didn't know what time it was without a clock, but it was probably still a little before 7. Sadako would probably be awake, preparing her breakfast and her lunch. But her uncle would probably still be wallowing in indolence. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking, and probably always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Sadako open the door for me, but if her uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Sadako saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. If I ran into her, what would I say? "I've come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet." No, I couldn't do that. That would be like making Sadako responsible for his death. Be quiet and go wait outside. Maybe that would do it. How would Sadako react to that? She would probably try to get me and give up on killing him. I would have to lie somehow to get her to go outside. Sadako didn't need to know that a murder was going to occur in this house. I couldn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do much just standing around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob, then slowly turned it and pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall steadily grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Sadako's house hit me. At the entrance, there were a few pairs of shoes and sandals. I couldn't tell whether he was here or not just by looking at them. I could hear a television on somewhere. The television was in the messy dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it, meaning whatever occurred in this dining room wasn't a meal. Ooh, that's a good one, Keiichi. Nobody in sight. No sign of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Could he have anticipated my coming and be hiding, waiting for me? The tension I felt was so thick, so tight that I thought it would choke me. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. I tightened my grip on it, then very carefully took a look around. Where had those peaceful feelings from before I had arrived here gone? Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow got on my nerves. And then, I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then, was it last night's dinner? I left the dining room, keeping vigilant, went down the hallway and found the stairs to the second floor. When that man was playing with his friends, he looked out of a second-story window. It was highly possible that that room was his own, and he slept there. I tiptoed up the edges of the stairs, quietly climbing without making a sound. I couldn't hear any kind of snoring. I didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms, slowly and quietly opening the paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. To search more efficiently, I got down on the floor and pressed my ear right up to it. I could hear the television in the dining room and a low hum, perhaps of boiling water. It was then that I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. It seemed like people had been here since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody to be around this early in the morning. I silently descended the stairs and went back into the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about, completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, the package for a side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Sadako had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rena's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging by how she cooked for me at my house, and from the type of and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The number stamped onto the food package read 830620. June 20th, 1983. That was yesterday. And there was food for two, which meant that this was last night's dinner, and Sadako's uncle would have been here then. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. That much was the truth. He had found fault with Sadako's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup, and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was a lit flame of anger and a curse. Should I have ever shown this man any mercy? Bump. I heard the sound again, the one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor? But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. It had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was enshrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking out into the changing room where I was standing, too. I'm gonna give another content warning for Child abuse? This is rough. Just a heads up, if anyone wants to dip out and be added when this is over, I can do that. And if not, just be prepared for something rough in a couple seconds here. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take a bath this early in the morning. If one did, then it would mean that this house had been stopped ever since some moment last night. Whistle, whistle, whistle. Was it being reheated? I will say that we are not about to stumble upon sexual abuse. I would give you a more specific warning if that was the case. The water boiler in the bathroom had been active this whole time. I checked in a clothing basket and saw Sadako's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it. Certainly not something she could wear today. It was probably from the miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then, an electric surge ran through my mind, and a terrible premonition came over me. Could she... She couldn't possibly have been in there since last night. That would be impossible. No. In Hinamizawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly, then quietly pulled aside the glass door. Hot, steaming air burst out of the slight opening. The fan wasn't on in the changing room, so it went completely white within the steam. Just as the hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath. And I just heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed to know who it was. Sadako! No answer. Sadako was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. The water boiler kept on making a whistling noise, as if angered. I could see the gas flame through a small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Sadako's entire body was boiled red and flaccid, as though her bones had melted away. She was almost like a doll as she laid there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and promptly shut off the boiler. Then I dragged Sadako's small body out of the bathtub. The water in it was as hot as the water in public baths. Yeah, it's worse than... Yeah, it's one of the worst things that happens. Was she in this boiling water for the entire night? She'll die. She'll die. Sadako's body was lighter than I'd expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped her in a towel. I went back into the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for the cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Sadako moaned again. It'll be alright, Sadako. It's me, Keiichi. Keiichi, can you hear me? Keiichi... Sadako recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddy and unfocused. I could tell she wasn't completely conscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. This was dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think. What would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer during a marathon in gym class or something? I turned the water faucet in the kitchen all the way on and soaked a towel in it. Then I took the cold towel and pressed it to Sadako's forehead. Sadako reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns, right, you would soak the burned spot under running water. Then Could I run cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? No. If it was that sudden, it probably wouldn't be good for her heart and she'd go into shock. I think I read that once before. This was about as much nursing as I could possibly give her. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur. What happened, Sadako? You're all right now. Your Nini will save you for sure. 5,039. 540. What was Sadako reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell-like words she kept saying. And at that moment, I understood what they were for. Sadako, you're counting? Why? People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? Sadako was counting like that. But 5,039? You moron! How long were you supposed to count in your own bathtub? 10... I doubted my ears and doubted her common sense. 10,000? You're a freaking idiot. What kind of dumbass can count to 10,000? There's no way you could do that. You'd boil to death before you got that far. Why were you... My uncle... Last night, her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and was inedible. Sadako didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different from what she usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of the pickled vegetables she'd bought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originating from Sadako and shouted at her that she never ever took baths. And then he put Sadako in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted to... I'll kill you. I snapped and exploded. Raising the newspaper-wrapped hatchet, I stampeded through the house, searching for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibrations, heartbeats. With a roar cry, I raced up the stairs with such force I could have stomped a hole through them. And I found the futon in the room I thought to be her uncle's, and well aware he wasn't sleeping in it, I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I'll bust the entire closet down, door and all. And if he's not there, maybe there's a secret door. Any switches or levers in the wall here? I smashed into wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose into the air and broken pieces scattered about the floor. I smashed all the glass windows, too, for good measure. Huh. After I'd destroyed everything beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. I'd have to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Sadako. I went back to the changing room. Sadako was still lying limp on the floor. There was nothing more an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in a mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again, but I still needed to go to the infirmary one more time. I needed to have a doctor look at Sadako. I thought about putting her in the dirty uniform lying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it would be pretty difficult. Shit, I don't have time to be wasting here. Eventually, I gave up on clothing her and just decided to carry her in a bath towel. The clinic was close to Sadako's house. It would be way faster to carry her there than to call 119 and get an ambulance. I threw the biggest towel I could find over her and prompted her to stand. Can you stand? I'll carry you over to the clinic. Thank you. Her words sounded clearer than before. She was starting to come back. I cried tears of relief just knowing she'd improved even a little bit. Sadako turned over so she was lying on her face, and then put up a weak struggle to get up on a knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off. The towel, it hurts. We'll be there soon. It won't be long, so stay strong. It didn't hurt one bit to carry Sadako. She was light. Too light. The lightness actually made me uneasy. Outside, it had gotten hotter, as though eager to attack Sadako. Fucking cicadas. Why did it have to choose this morning to get so hot out? I didn't have time to swear at them. The clinic was this way. Hoisting Sadako on my back, I broke into a trot. Higurashi when they cry. There's the thing. It's really rough. The hilly road to the clinic, with which I had never had difficulties before, was now torturous. Big beads of sweat formed on my brow, and at some point my breath had grown faint. The hatchet in my belt was heavy and made it hard to walk. I considered leaving it, but I couldn't let it go. At least not while Sadako's uncle was still breathing. The signboard for the Irie clinic came into sight, but I quickly noticed something was odd, so I stopped. Several red revolving lights were flashing at the clinic. 3 police cars were parked in the parking lot with their lights on. There didn't need to be much else to inform me something had happened. I didn't want to see Coach, so I had planned to leave Sadako in the clinic waiting room and give the receptionist a message. But with that police officer Oishi here, I couldn't go inside so carelessly. What's going on? Why are there so many police cars? I gently put Sadako down in the shade of the thicket. I don't know. I'll go see what happens, so you stay here for a moment. Leaving a lady in a place like this wearing nothing but a bath towel. Simply unforgivable. If you can still fire off those insults, you'll be fine. I'll be right back, I added, getting to my feet. Surely the other one will at least be funny. The other one doesn't have a towel on it, so no, we will not be looking at the other one. Cautious of my surroundings. Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen it. I've just heard that the new sprite has a towel and that the old sprite doesn't have a towel. Although they might have added a new sprite to the towel since this translation now says that she has a towel on. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm not fucking with it. Cautious of my surroundings, I hid myself behind a car and got closer to the officers grouped at the clinic's entrance. Yeah, that's what they meant. Surely there aren't people who complained about the artistic integrity of the series being compromised because a towel was added to that sprite or anything. I overheard an officer wearing a necktie, probably their leader, and a white-robed doctor having a discussion about something. The doctor didn't seem to be Coach. It was one of those who Coach told to make the tea yesterday. So you were the first one to find it since you were on morning duty. So then, what did it look like? I have heard that the original sprite is not sexual in any way, but that still, probably could have put a towel on Sadako. But also, Ryushiki, bro, what the fuck? He was sitting on the sofa in the head office. He looked like he was taking a nap. There was a jug and an empty bottle of sleep medication on his desk, so you immediately thought he had tried to commit suicide with it. What else? His high temperature and incontinence indicated a severe disturbance of consciousness. It seemed like a typical case of sleeping pill poisoning, so I immediately began to treat him. Without calling the police or an ambulance? This is a hospital. and I'm a doctor. Since his life was in danger, it's my job to treat him at once. Yes, I understand. Okay. What else? His breathing was in disarray, so I put him on a respirator. I also administered breathing stimulants. It had no effect, so I prepared a medical ventilator and... Right. So in other words, you did what you could, but it wasn't enough. That's it, right? You reported this as soon as he died? Okay, games, get some rest. I'll have the VOD up shortly, so you'll be able to check out the ending tomorrow. Yes. It was very unfortunate that we were unable to save him. Just then, a radio in one of the police cars started to buzz, producing a broken mechanical voice. This is HQ. This is HQ. Komiyama-san, can you hear me? Over. Hello. This is Komiyama. We've come up with something. It looks like he committed suicide with sleeping pills. No notes or anything. Suicide? What the heck were they talking about? Someone had committed suicide at the clinic. But who? I wished Takano-san dead, and she died the next day. And yesterday I wished Coach was dead. Then, could he have... Did he use sleeping medication regularly? I don't really know. Did he normally complain that he was tired or wanted to die? Well, Irie-sensei was normally so... well, himself. He never acted like that. So, I was right. Irie-sensei. They were talking about Coach. Coach killed himself. Why would he do that? There couldn't have been any reason he wanted to die. The only reason that came to mind was that I wanted him dead. This world was insane. If I wanted someone dead, they'd die. That was the kind of world this was. Then, what about Oishi? What happened to him? If people really died because I wanted them to, then something should have happened to him, too. I've sent you backup. The chief wants you to leave the rest to them and get back to searching for Oishi's car. Yes, sir. Please excuse me, then. It looks like we're getting relieved here, so please leave everything as it is right now. All right, let's go. The officers nodded and split up into patrol cars. Did they just say, searching for Oishi's car? Searching for his car. That meant he had gone missing? Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi. When I wished for it, the very next day, they disappeared. No matter how angry you were when you said you wished someone was dead, it didn't normally happen. Everyone knew just wishing for it wouldn't make them dead, and that's why people could utter such curses so lightly. But the curses I uttered were being granted. Tatarigoroshi-hen, the curse-killing chapter. At the time, I hadn't even been walking, and yet... tap. I heard a footstep. And it wasn't only one this time. Tap, tap. They came from behind, and they stood right behind me, reaching a hand for my shoulder. Would you mind telling me what's going on? Ugh. Sadako? Don't scare me like that. I'm the scared one here. I'd prefer it if you didn't shout so suddenly. It was Sadako. Her eyes were still unstable, unfocused, but she seemed able to at least walk on her own now. She looked far better now compared to her earlier exhausted state. How do you feel? Are you better? My head still hurts, but I can't stay outside looking like this forever. She gave a smile, a show of courage, but her legs were still shaky. Anyway, what on earth is going on? From what I just heard the police talking about. Okay, I'm gonna try something. Oh, whoops. From what I just heard the police talking about, Coach apparently committed suicide. I am going to hide the game for a second and see if the old sprite has a towel added to it. Okay, it does. It it does. And it's very funny looking. Okay, so they did indeed add a towel to the old sprite in this port. That's good. So, now, the thing... is this gonna undermine the... They just in MS Paint, they just added a fucking... Okay. Coach apparently committed suicide. Eh? Sadako was at a loss for words. Her face grew paler and paler, and I could tell she was doubting her own ears. Keiichi-san, is that true? I didn't mishear you? That's what I heard. They said Irie-sensei killed himself with sleeping pills. Yeah, you really shouldn't. Sadako went down on her knees and broke out in tears. It can't be. Coach, he would never, ever kill himself. As I watched Sadako and crying and clawing at the grass, I felt myself trapped by guilt and remorse. I got so angry that Coach was treating me like a madman yesterday, that he'd betrayed me, that I thought he'd be better off dead. But even Coach, who to me deserved to die, still must have had people who loved and respected him. Like Sadako here. In my selfish, egotistical anger, I wished for his death, and it was granted. And now Sadako was crying hysterically as a result. The guilt tore at my heart. I worked myself up to murder for Sadako's sake. I decided I wanted Sadako to be happy. But was that really all it took? Murder meant taking someone's life. It meant making everyone attached to that person sad. In Sadako's uncle's case, of course, nobody would be sad, so I didn't feel a sense of guilt at all. But Coach's death was different. I had wanted to make Sadako happy, and that had resulted in me inflicting a deep sadness upon her, hadn't it? But Coach killed himself. It wasn't my... Sadako still hadn't stopped crying, but she seemed to be a little calmer now. Wiping her tears, she stood up. I'm sorry. And the only thing I could think of to say to her was an apology. Why are you apologizing? Well, yesterday I, got into a fight with Coach, and I thought that I wanted him to die. I wanted it so he really... Sadako looked at me dubiously for a few moments. Eventually, her expression softened, and she interpreted my words in her own way. It isn't your fault, Keiichi-san. Coach was an adult, too. He felt like there was something he had to give his life for, and chose to do so after a lot of worrying and suffering. It's not anyone's fault. She smiled a little, trying to comfort me. I do not want to be naked forever. I want some clothes. Are you okay? Shouldn't you get someone at the clinic to... I won't die from putting on clothes before going. Sadako readjusted her bath towel and started back along the path. Her stride was wobbly, and it didn't look like she'd recovered as much as she let on. Girl is dying of heat stroke and is comforting a mentally ill boy. True. At first, Sadako tried to go back home, but it was the time of the morning when people were going to school and to work, so after seeing people walking around, she thought better of it. She must have been pretty embarrassed wearing only the towel. I'm going to Rika's house. My clothes should be there. What's wrong? Eiichi-san? Sadako noticed how I was hanging my head and spoke to me. Despite how he may have come off, Coach was an adult, alright? He would certainly not have killed himself after a petty fight with you, Keiichi-san. Please, stop blaming yourself. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but with 3 people now, I couldn't discard the possibility. There was no such thing as impossible in this world. These past few days haven't made any sense. What hasn't? Sadako seemed to be having trouble breathing, but she still tried to listen to what I had to say. At the Watanagashi festival the day before last, you went home on the way there, right? And I went there and had a lot of fun. So it would seem. I do apologize for getting so upset with you about it. Holy shit, Sadako... Yeah. Sadako remembered how she blew up at me in the classroom yesterday and bowed to me a little. If I said I didn't actually go to the festival at all, would you believe me? Sadako looked at me, confused. She couldn't help it, of course. Of course I wouldn't believe you. What are you on about? You wouldn't, right? I don't believe it either. I mean, I didn't go to the festival, but everyone's saying I hung out with them there. Nobody would believe it, right? Are you being serious? Yeah. Ever since the night of Watanagashi, everything's been messed up. These weird footsteps suddenly started following me everywhere. The blood drained from Sadako's expression. Footsteps? Following you? Yeah. I thought it was just my imagination at first, but they stayed with me. They're probably still there. I can't tell them apart now because of your footsteps, though. Sadako took a long and hard look at me. Maybe she was doubting my sanity. Coach did the same thing. I mean, why wouldn't he after telling him this? The more I thought about it, the more I was unable to endure the feeling that my hatred for Coach had been meaningless. On the day of Watanagashi, I didn't go. I was doing something else, the whole time. I wasn't sleeping or unconscious or anything. So it's not possible that I walked to the festival in my sleep and forgot about it afterwards. That is quite strange. Then how were you at the festival? That's what I mean. I didn't go to the festival. No, I can't let myself get emotional. If I get agitated now, that'd be like proving there's something wrong with my head. That is a really good face. Sorry. Well, nobody believes me, so... yeah. If that is what you say, Keiichi-san, then I will believe you. Then what? That night, I saw Takano-san, and it felt like she was looking down on me. So I made a wish. A wish that she would die. Takano-san does have that sort of air about her, doesn't she? I cannot say that I don't understand how you feel. Did you know that Takano-san died? It happened yesterday. Apparently she was burned alive somewhere. Is that true? She died? I wished for her to die, and the next day she was dead. And Oishi from the police, too. Do you know him? That annoying and fat detective guy? Sadako nodded a little. I heard from the police earlier, but apparently he went missing. And yesterday, actually, wished that he would die. Is all this true? I'm not lying. I don't want to believe it either, but it's true. Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi, I wanted them dead, and then they really died. For a little while, Sadako was at a loss. A long silence ensued. What a scary story. I should be sure not to get on your bad side, Keiichi-san. And that's not all. There's something even stranger. It's about your uncle. I would rather you not talk about my uncle. He was there yesterday, right? At your house. Could we please stop talking about him? I don't want to. It's impossible. He couldn't have been there. I said stop talking about him. No. No! That man couldn't have been there after the night of Watanagashi. Because I... No! No more, please, no more about that man. I killed him. With my own hands. Even the cicadas stopped crying. Her face was streaked with tears, and it stiffened even more as she looked at me in disbelief. On the night of the Watanagashi festival, I killed your uncle, so it's impossible that he could have gone back home. But still, he went back, and last night he found fault with the dinner you made him and yelled all sorts of things at you and then basically boiled you in the bathtub. That couldn't possibly have happened. So I wanted to make sure I'd actually killed him, so yesterday I went to dig up the corpse I buried. But the body wasn't there. Is that even possible? I killed him for sure, but there was no body. And he went home like nothing happened. Home to you, and that wasn't supposed to happen, was it? Sadako's entire body stiffened. She was shrinking away, like there was someone in front of her, about to hurt her. Oh god, I'm gonna fucking cry. Oh. Tatarigoroshi-hen is so tragic. I am missing the gentle days of Watanagashi-hen. You probably think I've gone a little crazy, don't you? I don't blame you. I can't believe it myself. Keiichi-san, I think you are very confused after all the people you wished were dead coincidentally died. You're just in shock at Coach's suicide and you're really upset. I think you should stay home from school today and rest. I'll be fine, so please, take care of yourself. Sadako spoke like she understood me, but she also told me to go home. Yo, Galfe, hey, welcome. Yeah, the Higurashi, the Higurashi game actually came first. The anime is based off it. I could see the revulsion in her face, and knew that she didn't want to be around me anymore. Once I show you to the clinic, I'll go home. Your legs are still shaking, aren't they? It would be terrible if you collapsed halfway there. Really, I am fine now. I do not want to expose my naked self to a man any more than this. She wobbled up the shrine steps, looking like she was about to fall. I immediately ran up to her and helped her stay on her feet. But then Sadako promptly jumped away from me. That outright rejection hurt a lot. When she got to the top of the stairs, her breathing was ragged, and she wasn't even looking at me. At this point, I was being ignored. Well, it was more like she didn't want to have anything to do with me. It was a feeling of rejection. And that hurt my heart more than any blade could have. This was the path I chose for her sake. To be treated like this at the end of it all was just so saddening. Don't be naive, my Barakeiichi. You never wanted to be repaid in the first place. You didn't do it so that Sadako would thank you. You did it so Sadako would be happy. And that was what led to this ending. Rika-chan's house was a disaster prevention storehouse used by the town council. If you went past it, a little further through the shrine grounds, you'd apparently reach the back of the assembly hall. Sadako was heading there, walking quickly, the gravel under her feet crunching as she went. Did she want to get there as soon as possible, or did she want to run away? I couldn't tell. And then I heard the vigorous sounds of wings flapping. Hey, Pyeon. How's it going? Thank you for the resub the other day. Welcome, welcome. I know you're dodging Higgy spoilers, and we're about to hit a massive one, but I'll I'll stop for a second. Yeah, I'll let you duck, but thank you so much again. And I was looking at your, I was catching up on your Patreon. Good shit as always, King. Thanks again for the resub. I'll talk to you later. Thank you for stopping in. I mean, we're reaching the end of the book, right? Yeah, we are. I turned around and saw a crow. I hadn't seen many crows since coming to Hinomizawa. I saw them a lot in my old town, though. On garbage day, they'd flock to trash collection points, peck through the bags with their beaks, drag out the contents, and have a feast. As I was remembering that, I saw a few crows flocking around the shrine's donation box, and I thought how terrible it was for someone to leave a garbage bag in a place like that. The cicadas quieted. Breathing stopped. Thoughts ceased. Even time came to a halt. I ran over to where the crows were flocking. I ran there in order to drive a horrible idea out of my mind. I definitely hadn't wanted this. There's no way I would ever wish for this even by mistake. This was not. When they noticed my vicious approach, the crows all flapped upwards, fleeing into the sky. When the crows' big black bodies flew away, they exposed the garbage bag. Insert cry of utter terror and despair here. What had I seen there? The scream had escaped from my throat before I understood what I was looking at. What was this? Hey, Joey, thank you for gifting Galte a sub. I appreciate it, man. Sadako came over as well, realizing something had happened. And she looked over my shoulder. Then she screamed as well. This wasn't. The garbage bag was crimson, dyed in fresh blood. Enough of this stupid roundabout way of saying it. That's right. Yes. It was Rika-chan. Our friend. Sadako's best friend. Always easygoing, clever as a cat, but so cute you couldn't hate her. Our friend Rika-chan. She was... Rika-chan was stark naked. She was face up, limbs sprawled. Her eyes were like glass, just staring up into the sky. And... Rika! Sadako broke down crying on the spot, and yet she still couldn't approach her friend's remains. The crows had gotten through the garbage bag and they dragged out an apple peel and spread it all over. No, no. Crows, they couldn't do this. Ugh. Uh, On the spot, I started vomiting. The sour taste became a bitter one as I threw up over and over again. Rika-chan, she, she, her stomach was cut wide open, vertically, completely open. Rika! Crows couldn't have done this. And from her open stomach, her organs, her bowels were dragged out like children's toys left all over the floor. That unbelievable sight induced oxygen deprivation in my brain. Color left my vision, a pounding headache, dizzy, and I wanted to vomit. It was like the nightmarish remains of a ceremonial killing. Someone, somewhere, had killed Rika-chan, brought her here, laid her here with her limbs sprawled out, and then cut her open and dragged out her intestines. Red and pink viscera were sticking out of her gut, and her intestines were scattered in every direction, like it had been for fun. The entire ground was covered in an ocean of red and black. A few of the crows had hopped around inside that ocean. They walked through the sea of blood, leaving bloody footprints. In those footprints, there were several still left on Rika-chan's body. Those sinister prints made it seem even more like a bizarre ritual killing. I may have wished for Takano-san and Coach and Oishi to die, but I didn't remember ever wishing for Rika-chan's death. Yeah. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I stumbled backwards, then stepped on a newspaper. A newspaper? In a place like this? The newspaper was what was covering my hatchet. I kept it wrapped up and on my belt in order to carry Sadako, and that newspaper had fallen off. Sheesh. Scare me like that. I bent down to pick it up. And then suddenly... Oh, Xeris, are you back already? I was gonna at you. Welcome, welcome. No, that was directed at Zanji, Xeris. I think you misread it. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, Xeris, we're good to go. I should make that clear too. I typed Zerps. I bent down to pick it up, and then Sadako looked at me with such disbelief as I'd never seen, and froze. No problem, Xeris. No, I understand. That was something. She was looking straight at me, at the hatchet on my belt. Calm down, Sadako. This isn't what it looks like. Sadako, trembling madly, backed away. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't. Murderer. She didn't care at all that she was exposing herself through the towel. She just trembled and tried to step back from the demon in front of her. Sadako, please calm down. Please relax. Sadako, No. No! Screaming weakly, Sadako began to run unsteadily. Run away, that is. Wait. Please wait, Sadako. You're wrong. That's not it. The way she ran away, it was so weak, so slow. So if I wanted to go after her, I could have caught up. But if I tried to grab Sadako's shoulder or something right now, she might actually go crazy. So I had to follow her and try to clear this up. You killed Takano-san and Coach and Oishi-san, didn't you? You killed my uncle, and then you killed Rika. You murderer. No, it wasn't me. I didn't kill her. What are you saying? You just said it yourself, did you not? You wanted them to die, and then everyone died, didn't they? Well, no. Just wishing that they were dead. That couldn't... You don't even remember what you did, do you? How can I trust a person like you? Didn't your memory of killing them just slip your mind? No. Maybe you're only pretending not to remember. Besides, what is that hatchet for? Try explaining that. It's for... See? Keiichi-san, you are a killer, aren't you? Why did you do it? You were a little mean, but you were fun and kind, and once I even thought you might be my real Nini. Why did you turn into this? I might have been able to slowly answer each one of Sadako's questions at a time, but in this situation, explaining my innocence in such a short period of time was impossible. I mean, I didn't even know if I was really innocent anyway. At the very least, I killed Sadako's uncle. There was no body, but I killed him, without a doubt. At that point, I was far from innocent. And I wish Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi were dead, and that curse of mine was granted. When I wished for Takano-san to die, I didn't think of it as anything more than a normal thing you'd say to someone you didn't like. But then she actually did die, and I realized that if I wanted people to die, they would. And hoping it would happen again, I cursed Coach and Oishi to the same fate. So, even ignoring Takano-san's death, Coach's and Oishi's were completely premeditated crimes. Was I a killer, just like Sadako said? Was I unable to distinguish between illusion and reality, and turned into a demon without remembering it, becoming a killer who carried out Oyashiro-sama's curse? No, that couldn't be. It was impossible. Ah, damn it. The very word impossible was impossible in Hinamizawa right now. How many freaking times have I said that word in the past 3 days? Sadako had started crying again and was walking unsteadily. At first it felt like she was still running, but now it was like she was walking away crying from someone bullying her. Why did things turn out this way? Why? If there was an answer to that, then I wanted to know it too. Why? Why had it turned out like this? After Nini went away, I was lonely for a long time. But then Keiichi-san transferred to our school, and everyone was happy again. It was fun again. Every day was beautiful. Yeah, she was right. Those days were bright and beautiful. Yet, after that, Sadako and I shouted the exact same thing. How did it turn out like this? The cicadas were sneering at the spectacle, our strange game of tag. Of Onigoko. Oh, shut up. Eventually I heard the murmuring of a stream. The forest parted, and a suspension bridge appeared. Sadako was crossing dangerously, wobbling as though she might fall at any moment. And when I stepped onto the bridge, it swayed a lot, causing Sadako to stagger and fall on the spot. Sadako, Are you okay? Don't, don't come near me. You murderer. Sadako shouted, her hatred made very clear. It was sad. If words could cut, and this warmth flowing from my eyes would have been blood for sure. Why did you turn out this way? Eiichi-san, I really, really liked you. I wanted to go up to her and give her a hand, but the distance between us was uncrossable. If I got any closer, Sadako would start shouting again, and say things that would hurt me deeply again, so I couldn't approach any closer than this. Sadako, I don't know how things turned out like this either, but I can say this. I wasn't the one who killed Rika-chan. At least that is true. Please stop being so absurd. How do you expect me to believe anything someone who can't even rely on his own memories has to say? I tightened my hands into fists. This was mortifying. It wasn't crazy. Inamizawa was crazy, ever since I wandered into it lost on that one night. This insane world, where I was at the festival when I wasn't, and the uncle I killed was alive. Where death would come just by wishing for it. It was this world's fault. Mion and Rena started acting strangely, like they were possessed by something too. And Coach wouldn't believe anything I had to say. And even Sadako, who I should have protected, was yelling at me like this. Was the price for killing a man supposed to be this high? I think maybe, yeah. I think the murder was the sin now, lol. Was I really going to be forced to stay in such a bitter world? I did the right thing. At least I wanted to. So then, why? I hated it. Every time I asked why, the days Sadako and I enjoyed in peace went so wrong. Sadako, please believe me. I'm not a murderer. Then what is that hatchet for? Can you give a convincing explanation for that? Is this hatchet scaring you? Okay, I'll throw it away. That's what you want, right? Sadako didn't nod, but she seemed to be in agreement with that proposition. I clumsily took the hatchet out of my belt and dropped it over the side of the bridge into the stream below. There, it's gone. Now, you'll listen to me, right? You think I'll let my guard down just because you got rid of your weapon? Eiichi-san, you're strong. It would be easy for you to strangle me with your bare hands. Like hell I would ever want to kill Sadako. You idiot. Then what should I do? Should I put my hands on my head? Yes, why don't you? Please put your hands on your head and face the other way. It was a cunning plan, much like the ones she used during club activities. Putting my hands on my head and turning away would mean I couldn't attack Sadako very easily. I immediately acquiesced to her request, since it would make her feel better. Is this alright? Please listen to what I have to say. Sadako stood up, then carefully approached me from behind. And then she actually came right up behind me. She was so close, and yet I was so sad that I wasn't allowed to turn around. I sort of think I understand that it isn't your fault, Keiichi-san. Huh? I think, probably, you have just been possessed by something evil. Until before, I thought Keiichi-san was a killer, but now I know. After looking at your eyes, I could hear that Sadako was still crying, but her voice was gentle just the same. Keiichi-san could never kill anyone. Something simply possessed his body and made him do evil things. Was she speaking literally right now? Or was she trying to admonish me? I couldn't tell. Come to think of it, maybe they were possessed, just like Keiichi-san. At the time, I was only thinking I would be killed, so I didn't think about it. But now I understand. That was the work of something evil that possessed you. Sadako? What are you... It was less like she was talking to me, and more like she was talking to herself, like she was confessing at my back. I understand, you know. It isn't like I haven't experienced it myself. Sadako's voice started to become mixed with sobs. Her pained voice tore at my heart. But I didn't know what Sadako was talking about. I climbed to the top of the ritual storehouse once. It was a few years ago. Once, when Sadako was playing hide-and-seek at the shrine grounds, she climbed onto the roof of the storehouse for ritual implements, which everyone said not to go near, and hid. And Sadako saw that she could get in through a window meant for ventilation. For Sadako, the word curse was plenty scary, but she was more curious about what was inside the unknown storehouse. She removed the grating on the window, which was already hanging off, slid her small body into it, and climbed down inside. It was too dark to see much, but after descending, she realized just how high up she'd been. Wait, this happened in every timeline then? Yeah, this happened, Oh yeah, each book has been an alternate timeline, Chow. That's why everybody is like, can Keiichi just get hit by a car already so this book can end? Despite the darkness, she could see a few things around her thanks to the faint light coming in from the air window. And to her disappointment, it was just a regular old storehouse. She tried to leave, but the door was locked up tight from the outside, and it was made to not open from within. She would have to go back out through the ventilation window she'd come from. But the window was high on the wall, and there was no way she would be able to climb back up. Sadako desperately tried not to cry, and racked her brain thinking of a way to get up there. There were a lot of birdcage-looking things hanging by chains from the ceilings. She took the hanging chains and strung them along the wall. If she climbed up the bundle of chains, she might have been able to climb up to the ventilation window. There was nothing else she could do, so she had to try. Try she did. It was dark and creepy, and she didn't want to stay there forever. Yeah, they open this thing once a year. The more she thought about that, the more she panicked. She climbed up the bundle of chains. Sadako could hear the clinks and clangs of everything creaking under her weight. And then, just as her hand reached the window, one of the metal fixtures she'd used to stick the chain on the wall flew off, and the chains began to pull loudly and furiously every which way. Yeah, no, this was like 2 years ago or something, I think she said. Spurred on by the sounds behind her, she managed to get back onto the roof from the window. Because of the weight of the flailing bundle of chains, the other fixtures broke. And then one of the big bird cages hanging from the ceiling fell to the floor with a huge noise. Under it was an image of Oyashiro-sama, his vessel, and the cage took off one of the arms and trapped some other implements beneath it. It didn't take very long for her to grow scared of what she'd done. The deafening noise could be heard from the rest of the shrine grounds. A few other children heard it and gathered around, and of course Rika was one of them. Then Rika's father, the shrine priest, with an angry look ran over. And then, as for what happened next, it was painful to remember. The only one who knew where Rika's parents kept the key to the ritual storehouse was Rika. So, he scolded her, saying this happened because Rika pulled a prank and hid me in there. He was very angry and menacing. Just looking at him was enough to frighten anyone. He exposed Rika's back, took a strangely shaped ritual cane or something, and struck her with it several times. Rika's words at the time, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm sorry." That pitiful voice, I still can't get it out of my head. I should have said it was me. I should have said so, to save my best friend from that false accusation, without being afraid of Rika's father's terrible temper. Rika gritted her teeth and cried at the crime she didn't remember doing. Ever since then, the world had been strange. I know. I understand. This is Oyashiro-sama's curse. His judgment for messing up the ritual storehouse and forsaking my best friend. Oyashiro-sama's curse. My father and mother, too. They vanished in that muddy stream. My mean aunt died, too. But then Nini, who loved me more than anyone, ran away from home. And then, Eiichi-san transferred in, and I thought I'd finally gotten my fun life back. But this time, Eiichi-san was possessed. And even Rika got killed. There's something I heard once. Oyashiro-sama, when he really curses someone, he doesn't kill them right away. He goes in order of your closest friends, and after killing them all, he kills that person last. So, Keiichi-san, the curse got you too. I'm sure that Rena-san and Mion-san will be cursed next. And then they'll kill and be killed. No more. No. Calm down, Sadako. There is no curse. Nobody is trying to torment you. When I turned around, I was thrust away with amazing force. Given my hands were awkwardly placed on my head, I couldn't take the fall and lost my balance. And I'd been pushed not onto the bridge, but onto the side, towards the stream. No, this can't be happening. As one last miracle, I was allowed to grab a cord hanging from the bridge. Far below me was the stream. Naked moment. We were pretty high up, and below were rocks of all sizes. If I fell, it clearly wouldn't be pretty. The entire bridge was tilting under my body weight. My frail little grip probably wouldn't last another minute before my fingers had to let go. Sadako! Sadako! I didn't understand myself what I meant by shouting her name like that. Was I asking her to save me? Or was I asking her why she did this? Finally, everything came back into focus, and I saw Sadako. And I was surprised at what an odd expression she had. It was the first time I'd seen it. It was an expression of righteous anger meant for only those who needed to die. Die, you murderer! Give him back! Give back my Nini! Give back Rika and Mommy! And Keiichi-san! As she screamed, she jerked the bridge to and fro. She didn't have to do that. I was going to fall anyway. I won't lose to the likes of you. I won't lose to some stupid curse. I will never, ever lose to you. You took everyone. I will never lose to you, not ever. Sadako, please, just let me say one thing. I don't know what my face looked like at the time, but it seemed it was enough to quell Sadako's agitation. I know that what I did isn't exactly praiseworthy. No, in fact, maybe I should never have done it at all. I did it because I wanted you to be happy. Eiichi, please, just believe that. You, at the very, very end, you're still pretending to be Keiichi-san. Sadako didn't seem to have any more desire to listen to what I had to say. And for that to happen at the very end like this was tragic. I didn't do any of it so you would praise me. If it made you happy, that was all that mattered. We were nothing. Without your smile, we were nothing. So, after I disappear, please smile. If you can get on with your new life by my dying, then please just smile. Can't you at least promise me that? Stop speaking. Don't use Keiichi-san's mouth like that. Fall down. Die! And those were the last words Sadako ever said to me. Those sad, tragic, and altogether unrewarding words. What on earth was I? My desire to make Sadako happy ended up like this. Where did I first go wrong? Was it the murder? And what was the mistake I made? When did I make it? Was I the crazy one, or was it Hinamizawa? Even after all of this, I thought I wasn't crazy at all. It was this eerie world that was crazy. This world I'd accidentally wandered into that one night. Because that fun world, where I never doubted all the crazy times we had as a club would go on forever. It couldn't possibly have transformed into such an abnormal world. That fun world wouldn't have ever ended with this, with Sadako pushing me to my death. In the end, I was going to be swallowed up by this crazy world and disappear. No, I'd probably already disappeared. Yes, probably. On the night of the Wada Nagashi. I'm sure that in the world I really belonged to, I had vanished that night and everyone was worried. It was laughable that I had taken this long to figure out I wasn't around anymore. But Yashiro-sama's curse on the 5th year was Sadako's uncle dying and me disappearing. In the real world, Sadako had already been freed. Maybe my friends were all lamenting my disappearance, all valiantly trying to get back on their feet. And even though they were down to 4 people, the club would reopen and they would have a good time without me, waiting for the day I would come back. I'm sorry, everyone. I couldn't come back home. But this is what I wished for. It was my wish for Sadako's smile, and my duty as her Nini. At this point, there will be nobody left to torture you. Because Satoshi and I, it took 2 years, but we succeeded. That annoying toothy smile of yours, we wanted to see it one more time. My pain wasn't gentle or merciful. It was a sharp pain, violent, powerful, and ruthless. What little compassion I had receded in the span of a moment. And now, I could die. I could say goodbye to this insane world. Farewell, crazed Hinamizawa. Thanks for giving me the psychic power to kill people whenever I wanted. If you'll still allow it, I'll wish for one last thing. The death of this very world, of this crazed Hinamizawa. So that nobody would ever have to find themselves lost here again. Higurashi, when they cry. You have received new tips, research notes. Wait, this guy is writing the next one. Fuck. Yeah, he is writing Silent Hill R. Research notes. What do we got here? Oyashiro-sama. Hey, guess what? The book's not over. Nobody really knows what characters to use to write Oyashiro-sama. Knowing this is hard, partly because depending on the time period, he has to be called with various titles, and subtle changes to his name, and nobody knows the real one. The only thing all time periods agree on is that the four syllables O, Ya, Shi, and Ro are always used. There is a theory stating the shrine, or Yashiro, dedicated to Oyashiro-sama itself became an object of worship, and that people began calling it O Yashiro-sama, or Lord Honorable Shrine, but this doesn't make a bit of sense. I don't know whether this is related, but people say the Furude family, the most respected bloodline in terms of worshipping Oyashiro-sama, actually inherited his blood. And in the legend of the Furude family, the Furude family passes down, if for 8 generations in a row, the firstborn child is a girl, the 8th daughter will be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. If we go by this legend, then the characters used for Oyashiro-sama's name should be O for honorable, Ya for 8, and Shiro for generation. These character assignments are simply something I've thought up. There is no way to verify it. If this is true, then Oyashiro-sama would have been named as such under the assumption that he would come again. The second coming of an object of worship can be seen in several religions, so this isn't unusual. But a few of these religions call the second coming of their object of worship a day of judgment, or something along those lines, and we must not forget they meant it to be the end of the world. Furude Rika, pampered and loved dearly by the elderly folk in the village. The rumors say she is the 8th generation, and Oyashiro-sama. I do not know the family tree of the Furudes, but at the very least I can confirm that for the past 2 generations the first child has been a girl. Furude Rika watches over Hinamizawa. If the village were to lose her protection, what would happen? Would peace between man and demon be lost? Would it once again create a hellish landscape where man-eating demons run rampant? A gruesome feast of demons who suddenly remembered how delicious the weak humans were, who could only cry, scream, and run for their lives. What would that look like? Just imagining it is enough to make my heart pound with excitement. Come on, you know who wrote that. You know who wrote that. Anyway, time for the epilogue. Yeah, that was Takano. Hey, who was it that said and then he lived? Oh, it was Chow, yeah. My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold, too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned red or blue, or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I'd failed to die, and now I was stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked only 1 or 2 hours had passed. But my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short a time had gone by. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. Ow. Ow. The more feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic brought more memories back one after another. Memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Sadako was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now. She would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. Oh, I gotta turn the sprites back on to update it. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find out for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me? Or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream, and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind, and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I'd been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. Then, at last, I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in the chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow, and many leaves were spread on the ground despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me back to few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see the insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and strewn them about. This stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burned eggs, combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody, despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet it felt like I was sauntering about at midnight. With this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this? Anyway, there was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard, idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trucks. It was hot and humid even in my casual clothes. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat, and with such a stench about. They were taking colorful cargo out of the truck and lining it up in the schoolyard. They were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy, too. They were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly, like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several, dozens, hundreds of tuna were completely filling up the fairly wide schoolyard. I had forgotten my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same burned egg smell as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then, certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing truck caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-Defense Forces? Like the army? Why was the army in the schoolyard? Hey, you! Where did you come from? Suddenly someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around, and a canopied SDF Jeep was parked there. The SDF person had on a green raincoat and a gas mask like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. Where did I... Ow, ow. When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks, but they seemed surprised. Do you live in Hinamizawa? Can you tell us your name and address? Well, yeah, I sort of live here. My name is Maibara Keiichi. Oh, and my address is Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. After seeing me tell them my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the Jeep started to talk into a radio. Base, do you read? Base, do you read? We have a 402. Survivor discovered. I repeat, we have a 402. We found a survivor. He's in front of the Forest Service office. This is Base. We copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status? Healthy. Wounded all over, but not fatally. He can walk on his own. We'll send him to HQ for safety. I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF... I couldn't help but think it seemed a little bit much. They urged me to get into the back of the Jeep, and then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so. One of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lens made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. Neither does Chat. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper, adjusting my mask. Excuse me, has something happened? Where were you? What were you doing? Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you. I, fell from a rope bridge way back in the mountains. I think I passed out on the riverbed. I don't actually know what day it is. Today is June 22nd, 1983, Wednesday. That surprised me. Sadako pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday the 21st. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. Forgive me for asking again, but did something happen? Is the 22nd her birthday? Yes, it is, Zeros. Why is the SDF here? Is this a drill? No, I think yesterday was her birthday. I think her pushing Keiichi off the bridge was on her birthday. Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat talking on his own radio turned on the vehicles. He turned on the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started to listen to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with. Was conducted at the Prime Minister's office. In regards to question from the press that the SDF not responding to the disaster promptly was directed related to the unprecedented, unheard-of catastrophe, Chief Cabinet Secretary Okuno had this to say. And so, I believe that once the SDF received the dispatch order from the prefectural government, they responded promptly. According to him, the SDF was prompt to respond to the crisis after receiving their orders. He implied that it was the prefecture's responsibility for taking too long to comprehend the situation. When did the governor who requested the SDF's dispatch actually become aware of the outbreak of such an unprecedented catastrophe? And did he not invite further damage because of the time lost before he sent the request for disaster relief? In other words, because of the bureaucracy? We are awaiting further investigation into the matter. That was Mr. Okada, reporting from the Prime Minister's official residence. At this point, we take another look at the political response following this disaster. In the middle of the night, between June 21st and 22nd, a large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details have not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. With most of the residents asleep, it is thought that they all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. But there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinomiya sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually, the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls, but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check up on things, but they lost contact with him as well. It is extremely regrettable. If they had contacted the police or fire department at this point, it is highly possible the situation would have turned out more positively. At the very least, it's possible that a portion of the village might have been saved from tragic annihilation. 6 a.m. Residents in the area in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Volcanic viper. Contact was lost with a patrol car on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. Local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasure office. Holy shit, Ryushiki. He's like, I need to research exactly how this would work. It's going in the book. So wait, he was spared because he was too busy drowning in the river? It's not that he was drowning, he was far enough down that he was not in Hinamizawa. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late. As has recently been pointed out by citizens groups, his trip with honorary Diet members to inspect other prefectures was based solely on good relations, and it's rumored that they preoccupied themselves with a drinking party. So sources closer to him claimed that the governor had been drinking all night and had gone to sleep in a drunken state. He was completely drunk when the environmental chief phoned him as well, and apparently he could not get him to pay any attention to the matter. So it took about an hour for the governor to sober up, gain an understanding of the situation, and gather information. He literally didn't get killed by Volgan firing the nuke because he got thrown off the bridge. Yep. Though not as extreme as the governor's case, the environmental chief who became director general in the government's absence will likely also be questioned about his negligence. In addition, without any procedures in place on the prefecture side that preceded catastrophes this massive, they would always react too late, and that ended up being fatal. 9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak. Is Keiichi just listening to this on the radio, losing his fucking mind? Whatever the case may be, it was unfortunate that this happened in the middle of the night when everyone was sleeping. Had the same disaster occurred during the day, it likely would have been entirely different. All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but these results are predicted to only increase that number. Here with us in the studio today is Dr. Fujiwara, a professor at Redacted University who is well acquainted with volcanic disasters. Doctor, can such a sudden and horrible outburst of poisonous gas actually happen? It isn't at all unusual for this to happen right around craters, at least. Japan is a volcanic nation, and so has many active volcanoes. There is always a danger of hazardous gas around any of these craters, and it is generally a rule among mountain climbers not to go near them. Does this mean the rotten egg smell that visited Hinamizawa village was the normal sort of gas from volcanic craters? Judging by how it smelled like rotten eggs, we judge it was hydrogen sulfide, a gas seen particularly frequently in accidents compared to other volcanic gases. If it's dense, it becomes extremely dangerous. Hinamizawa village is very far away from the craters of any volcanoes. Can hydrogen sulfide be generated even from a place not close to a crater? I don't know all the details, so I can't say anything concrete, but in other countries there are records of gas eruptions due to magma buildup under hot springs. It's an extremely rare event, but it is possible for such a thing to happen even in regions not near craters. Thank you very much, Doctor. We appear to have an announcement from the Japan Defense Agency. Miss Morikawa, are you there? Yes, I'm at the Japan Defense Agency. The agency has just made an announcement regarding the source of the Hinamizawa village gas disaster. Analysis from the Ground Self-Defense Force's Department of Chemistry has found that the gas was a mixture of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Miss Morikawa, do you know whether the gas is still erupting or spreading to nearby areas? According to the SDF's 9th Division, who are currently engaged in a rescue operation at Hinamizawa village, the gas density is steadily decreasing. They've announced that the damage will not spread. However, it does not change the fact that the surrounding areas are still in danger, and that very strict observation must be maintained. That was Morikawa from the Japan Defense Agency. And now we have a report on the state of those who have been made to evacuate the Okinomiya area. Shimino Shinozaki Elementary School is one of the evacuation sites, and we currently have a reporter on scene. I'm sorry, it's a little funny. Bro heard all that and went, wait, what? No, that's not the school from, that's the school in Okinomiya. That's not the school in Hinamizawa. It doesn't even have a fucking name. Wait, what? Inside the jeep, clamoring and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night? Where was Hinamizawa village, anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I've heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out? What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually, we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. Cagey with the copium. When they saw the jeeps coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher. You're going to be all right. How do you feel? Can you walk? Yes. Ow, ow. And because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio. Multiple wounds, high possibility of fractures and internal damage, large laceration in the head, pupils normal, but even without bleeding from the fundus, brain damage is still possible. And then, from the clinic entrance, people lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa. And that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. Two troops holding shoulders and legs, like some kind of baggage, picked them up and threw them into the trunk. In the trunk of this truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage, and that told me they were already nothing but shells. That moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunk, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses, 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 corpses. You jackasses! Don't just throw the victims in like that. They lived here. The troops carrying the sacks answered me with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish, again, it was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and then it happened the next day. And please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night, it's still going on. Please, please end it already. Remember when he was thanking God for the psychic ability to kill people? Yeah, that was... Hey, he's lost consciousness. Shout his name, quickly. Maibara-kun, can you hear me? If you can hear me, just blink. Maibara-kun, Maibara-kun, Maibara-kun. Damn, he even got snaked. Suddenly, the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their cries. His breathing stopped. Get his respiratory tract open. Use CPR. Make him live. Damn it. Damn it. No more. No more dead people. Nobody deserves to die. Don't kill him. Don't kill him. I could hear the voices of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from his heart. They were so commonplace, and they soaked into my heart, too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Sadako. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little much, Oyashiro-sama. Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Sadako said something. Oyashiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first. It kills everyone they love before that. Oyashiro-sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end. But it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me. Even once. And now, I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. Their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa village. Volcanic gas erupted from Onigafuchi Swamp, one of the Hinamizawa area's water sources, and spread through the entire village. There were 1,200 victims. 20 have gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were uncovered directly under Onigafuchi Swamp, and that gas had gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming this disaster was a curse based in Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There was apparently local legends of a curse spreading a miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remained a part of those legends. More extreme periodicals suggested that this was an extension of the string of freak death incidents that had been happening in recent years in Hinamizawa village, stirring interest in theories about the curse of Oyashiro-sama. In addition, relatives of those in the Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them even... Damn it! This fucking speedrun shit. This is important, so we can't gloss over it. In addition, relatives of those in Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them even died of unknown causes, further encouraging such extreme opinions. On top of that, several relatives professing to be possessed by Oyashiro-sama's curse committed suicide in strange ways. And the impact the disaster has had, son of a bitch, the impact the disaster has had on the entire nation can no longer be ignored. It was not the pipe they found, no. Wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night, killing people, spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headache, dizziness, etc. Some people who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were mistakenly attributed to the tabloid press, but afterwards some even began to call the mental issues arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. The prohibition was at one point undone by a result of decrease in the gas's density, but that autumn another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being cordoned off again. Word is the area is sound asleep, sound asleep, and all traces of its former life intact and left to rot. Only one survivor remains. Maibara Keiichi, age something, lived in Hinamizawa village. At the time of the rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs, but as a result of a life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He is currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press have all been asking him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between June 1st and June 2nd in Hinamizawa village? Today he remains silent, unwilling to speak of it. He survived. Good end. Great. Oh, fuck. Jiro Tomitake died on the 19th. Akano Mio died on the 19th, strangled to death. Oishi went missing on the 20th. Umitani went missing on the 20th. Irie committed suicide on the 21st. Rika possibly killed on the 21st. Ryugu Rena, Sonozaki Mion, Sonozaki Oreo, Hojo Sadako, Hojo Tepe, Maibara Ichiro. Oh, Hojo Tepe and Shion commits suicide like 6 months later. Maibara Keiichi attempted suicide 2 days after Shion. Damn, they really just sort of... So, Sadako and... We had to really fucking... Sadako and Tepe are missing. Their bodies were not found. Shion commits suicide later. Keiichi also attempts suicide later but lives. Yeah, for Sadako and Hojo Tepe, it said that their bodies were not found. It said that they were missing. All the other cast members were confirmed dead. Higurashi, When They Cry. Sadako's body was never found, nor was Hojo Tepe's. "2003, late summer," which was present day when this was written. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago. Their son went missing when his fishing boat capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they had began to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds, and came across the cassette tape in question. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experienced working as a journalist for a photography periodical, and this tape is thought to have been created during that time. The label on that tape read 11/28/1983, Maibara Keiichi. It is thought that the tape was recorded during an interview with Maibara Keiichi, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke publicly to anyone in a public but he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. It's really hard to talk about stuff when I know I'm being recorded. Please, don't worry about it. Here, it won't be a problem if I do this, right? After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he cover the recording device with something? Then let's get started. Here's my first question. Keiichi-kun, where were you the night of the great disaster? I had gone behind the shrine, then took a path through the woods for a while. There's a rope bridge there. A little while before you get into the mountains. I fell from there and lost consciousness. Did this happen during the night of the disaster, between the 21st and the 22nd? No. It was the morning of the 21st, on Tuesday. Which means I woke up the afternoon of the next day. I think I was out for a day and a half. Why on earth were you there? I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know, but the bridge that you fell from that day, a weekday I might add, was quite far from both your house and the school, wasn't it? Speaking frankly, there are some who say you knew of the great disaster beforehand, and fell from the rope bridge as you were trying to flee the village. This isn't a joke. Please don't be so arbitrary about this. I think it's a terrible thing to say, too. Please don't be offended. Anyway, about the rope bridge you fell from. It was right here on the map, right? The rope bridge beyond the back of the shrine and through the path in the woods. Probably. I never went over there, so I can't say for sure. I guess I just want to know why you were out somewhere you had never been before on a weekday morning. And then, well, about the riverbed you fell unconscious on. Have you heard the rumors about that being impossible? Impossible. That that word. Again, again, again. For a little while, Maibara Keiichi mutters the word impossible several times. Why would it be impossible? You know how the volcanic gas originated in the Onigafuchi swamp? Some scholars did some pretty delicate simulations and modeling and discovered something very interesting. The volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing lower and lower places, kind of like what water does. And with Onigafuchi Swamp as its source, they were able to test how much time it would take for the gas to erupt and spread across the whole village. So, well, that riverbed you were unconscious on, the gas, it would have flowed down there. I don't really understand what you're getting at. In other words, if you were really passed out on that riverbed, you would have been in the middle of all the toxic gas that was spreading everywhere that night. That means there was no chance you could have been passed out there. Allow me to be a little more frank. I think that maybe you might be telling a lie. During the Great Disaster, you were hiding in a safe place, keeping an eye out for when the gas got thinner, then reappeared and were secured by the SDF. How about that? Is that right on the mark? For a short time, the journalist presses Maibara Keiichi further, in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs. Even if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. What do you mean, you wouldn't be surprised? Was this recording really taken of Maibara Keiichi? Some harbor suspicions. You said it before, didn't you? That it was impossible. Impossible things happen in that Hinamizawa all the time. There are people who shouldn't exist. Dead people end up alive. It's not really that unusual. Never thought I, of all people, would be asked to prove that I was still alive when I was supposed to have died. The journalist and Maibara Keiichi both laughed for a while. To verify its authenticity, I had others in the Maibara family check tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear, and much time had passed, so the relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to give positive proof that it was actually Maibara Keiichi's voice. Alright then, I'll change the subject. What do you think about the debate? What do you think of the debate about whether this disaster was the curse, the 5th year of the serial freak death incidents in Hinamizawa? I don't think it was. I was the curse that year, after all. Hmm? What do you mean? What do I was just answering the question. Doubts also remain regarding the date 11/28 written on the tape. Hi, Mirana. Yeah, we're at the end of book 3. Everyone in Hinamizawa died or went missing. Most of them died. Except for Keiichi. Yeah, you joined at a good time. Keiichi's being interviewed in a hospital room somewhere. Or this is a recording of that. Or maybe is a recording of that. The curse. Well, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this. I was the one who caused it. I was the one who wished for the whole village to die. And it happened. What an exciting story. Exciting? I suppose you could call it that. After Maibara Keiichi's failed suicide attempt on a certain August day 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility. I was the one who killed Takano-san, and Coach, and Oishi too. At the time, I had some kind of divine power. Yes, I suppose it was like footsteps. Footsteps? Wait, what's that supposed to mean? You. Have you never heard footsteps before? Tip, tap, click, click. I love Jokerfied Keiichi. Yeah, he is Jokerfied, Joey. The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it is extremely unlikely that a tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have his voice on it. Today, when you're walking around, try stopping suddenly. Something interesting will happen. Anyway, if you hear an extra footstep, even though you'd already stopped walking, you'd better be careful, you know. Yes, I'll be careful. Is what I'm saying really that funny to you? However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active, so there is still a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Maibara Keiichi to talk. You've been doing nothing but laugh in my face this whole time. You're just like Coach. You pretend to sympathize with me, to listen to what I have to say, but your eyes are telling me you think I'm a lunatic. That's not true. No, I can tell. Your eyes are the same as Coach's. Is this truly Maibara Keiichi's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I never heard the footsteps again after that day, so I don't think I have that terrible power anymore. Perhaps, right here, right now, I'll wish for you to die. I'll wish for your death, for saying all these unpleasant things. Yes, this time, why don't I decide how you die? Takano-san was burned to death, so let's go with the opposite. With water. I hope you drowned and die. How's that? 15 years after the tape was created, the reporter, just as Maibara Keiichi had predicted, died in an accident out on the sea. If I'm in top form like I was then, you die before tomorrow morning for sure. Now then, I wonder how many days it will take you to drown. You'd better be careful, you know. Don't go getting yourself killed. Some stupid curse I put. Okay? The recording ends in the middle of Maibara Keiichi's laughter. And Maibara Keiichi, he died on the night of November 30th, 2 days after the interview. He suddenly died from a high fever, cause unknown. Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. An extra set of footsteps. His last words were an extra set of footsteps. Higurashi, when they cry. You'd like that? You'd like that. Yeah, I'm a little spooky. Hey, the all cast review session has been unlocked. Hey, brain bleach time. We'll take a moment. But then we'll jump in and see how the cast is holding up after that one. Yeah, rap party. So that's book 3. You're really good at the spooky voice. Thank you, Mirana. That was like my lungs turning into... Anyway, I was going to say, not I'm sorry this time, huh? Yeah, no. An extra set of footsteps. All right, Chow. I hope you get some good sleep. Thanks for hanging out. If you're at all interested in it, if you check the VOD later or check the YouTube videos, we're gonna get well, we get a cast party with the characters. His last words in book 2 were like, "Hey, Mion, what up?" I'm not sure what they were. Thank you very much for enjoying Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3, Tatarigoroshi-hen, or Curse Killing Chapter. How did you like it? It had a different sort of atmosphere than the previous chapters. I would be happy if you enjoyed it. A bad end again. The type which we're so fond of, huh? Personally, I wanted to get a scene of the gas coming in, the villagers spasming and foaming at the mouth one by one before dying. Do you all think so too? Of course I do not think so. Again. It happened again. A huge bad ending. Huh? Mi-chan, you sure seem happy about the bad end. Well, it's more like all we can honestly do at this point is laugh. Shion W! Not you, Sonic, though. You're doing great, sweetie. Takano, please choke me out. I'm sure she will soon. I love the brat voice you give Shion. I mean, look at her. It's just right. Thank you, though. I mean, you know, I do my best. The terrible endings have been escalating through each chapter, and it finally reached a culmination, I suppose. Everyone died together as friends. As friends. Nipa. I guess you could say that. I die every time, though, and I'm a little tired of it. It would be nice to have an ending where I didn't die once in a while. Tometake-san, you're kind of like a news reporter. When you die, it's like, oh, we're in the second half now. Kind of. Oh, there's 8 books. Yeah, there's 5 more. Okay. Now, here are all the new character portraits that debuted in this chapter. Everyone give a big round of applause. First is Coach, Kyosuke Irie-san. I'm honored to have your introduction. Hello there. I was a minor character, but having a full portrait like this really makes me feel important. It's true. You had too many appearances and too much dialogue to be a minor character this time. I don't know if I'll appear in the next scenario, but so please root for me. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Chie-sensei, who has been around since Chapter 1, but has never had a portrait until now. This shit is so funny, I love it. Hello there, everyone. They've had me appear in school scenes ever since the first chapter, but for whatever reason, I didn't have my own portrait. I wonder why. Yes, I wonder. Oh, someone give Chie-sensei a seat, please. This is totally a joke that she fucking looks like CL? Or maybe that she wasn't important? Art team didn't care about you? Okay, now everybody is here. Rana, you can do the honors again. Okay, everyone. Please pick up the cup nearest to you on the table. There are plenty of different drinks. These after parties have really gotten lively. How many do we have here now? Including us, I think there are about 10 people. Now we finally have the same number of minors and adults. We can all drink without being ashamed. Speaking of beer, how is it that something so delicious when cold turns so bad when warm? One of the 7 wonders of the world, I say. I wonder why. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Takano and Chie just talked to each other. Takano and Chie just talked to each other for a second. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Okay. Alright, I'm better. I'm good. Okay. I'll pour some beer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh? There were 6 adults here? Me. I would like the foamy barley tea as well. Pika-chan, you can't drink. Anyway, Renaissance, let's get this moving. Well, okay. Can I have everyone's attention, please? Alright, everyone. Excellent work on the Tatarigoroshi chapter. Cheers! Cheers! Yay! Pachi, 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 pachi. Okay then, let's get down to our traditional plot discussion. Still though, this chapter just confused us yet again. Well, if anyone has an opinion, please raise your hand. Thank you for the hydrate barrel. This whole thing is just a LARP. Yeah, this is what keeps it from being absolutely soul-crushing, is the rap parties. I love them. Wow, everyone being so discreet. No hands? She has an old man haunting her like mine does. Then why don't I break the ice? Oh, excuse me. Could you change the music, please? To something a little more mysterious. Yeah, that's good. The mood has been set. Alright, Takano-san, take it away. I think that just by poring over the Tatarigoroshi story, the mystery won't be revealed. I know what you mean. Obviously, that's how the stories have been set up. Was there something like that in particular? I don't know if I'm right, but in Onikakushi, when Maibara-kun was eating in the restaurant with Oishi-san, Tonozaki-san found out, and it was a little mysterious, right? It was certainly mysterious just in Onikakushi, but after reading Wataganashi, a few things made a lot of sense. When I mentioned a restaurant with cute uniforms during the story, it must have meant Angel Mort. And Angel Mort is owned by the Sonozaki family, so... Someone who knew Kei-chan was there too, and told me. It actually makes a good amount of sense, right? That's what we mean. There are subtle differences in the Higurashi stories, but I think there's 3 facets that are the same for each. The character settings, for example. I was scary in Onikakushi, but that wasn't only because it was Onikakushi. It was because my character was the exact same in all 3 stories. Is that it? I agree with the characters being exactly the same. The most extreme case is being me dying in the same way in the same place every time. No matter which story it is, you always die on the same day. There's a scene where during Wada Nagashi, Akano-san and Tomitake-san sneak into the ritual implement storehouse. The same scene may have still happened in the other stories, even though it wasn't portrayed. I think it still happened. Save for a few events, The weather the day of the festival, what we did in the club, and Sadako's uncle coming home, it's almost all the same. Which means we have a bunch more questions. If the stories are told in the exact same environment each time, why do they end up being so different? If we think in a general sound novel type of way, sometimes the story branches depending on choices, right? So like, if in Wada Nagashi you had given the doll to my sister. An unavoidable bad end from a choice so early on. That's pretty scary. What was Rena getting at? That she was only scary in book 1, but she was the same in all 3? Yeah, she's saying that she is the same person in all 3 books. She was scary in book 1 due to reasons that we don't fully understand yet, maybe, but she's the same person that she was in book 1 in all 3 books. The person that Ryugu Rena still means the same thing in every book. Well, in Tatarigoroshi, maybe whether you decide to kill the uncle or not. I think it was way before that. I think it branched back when the uncle's lover disappeared because of some trouble and he returned to Hinamizawa. Then, what was the first branch in Onikakushi? I think it was when I appeared and started talking about the serial freak death incidents related to Oyashiro-sama's curse. You know, I just thought of something. If Keiichi-san gave the doll to Mion-san, and if Oishi-san and my uncle hadn't appeared, would we have spent our time in peace without anything happening? I see. Sadako's gotten right to the point. You're right. You can say that again. Then maybe we should pray Oishi-san and her uncle don't show up in this dark story. And if we can prevent Sonosaki-san from getting in a bad mood, everyone will be happy? Yay, big sis, you're needed for the bad ending. Be careful, everyone. If you make my sister mad, you're sure to get a bad end. What are you saying? Shion? Next time I'll pound nails into you without mercy. Bang, bang. Just you wait. That fucking rules. That fucking rules. We can't solve any of the mysteries thus far, but we seem to have put together a plan for how to get the story to end happily. I wonder if that would really make us happy. Oishi-san and Hojo Teppei-san don't show up. Mion gets the doll. Is that all we have to make sure of? You're right. We're all forgetting the most important thing. Remember the Great Hinamizawa disaster? You cannot prevent natural disasters. Should we have everyone in the village put on gas masks and move away? It's probably Oyashiro-sama's curse. So we need to make sure not to make Oyashiro-sama angry. This is getting a little tricky. We mustn't anger Oyashiro-sama, eh? And what should we do in order to prevent that? The dam project itself is probably out of the question. Maybe if there was never a dam project in the first place? That would be hard. If it didn't happen, we wouldn't need a ritual to quell Oyashiro-sama's anger. Sinking a sacrifice into the Onigafuchi swamp. A ritual sacrifice. A sacrifice? Who do we sacrifice? Come on, use your head. Someone who dies no matter what happens. If he's gonna die anyway, And we might as well have it help out Hinamizawa. When you say dies no matter what, you're talking about me, aren't you? I knew all along. I knew you had some very important role in this story, Jiro-san. We'll get you to play your part. And with that, we have a blueprint for getting a nice, good, happy ending, don't we? Let's give it a try since we have time. Everyone involved, come over here. First, we stop Uncle Hojo, whose lover ran out on him from returning to Hinamizawa. Hiya, my name's Uncle Hojo. He has no portrait, so I'm standing in. I'm so lonely and blue because my lover ran away. Time to go back to Hinamizawa, lock up Sadako-chan, and raise her into a maidservant. Why don't I take my motorbike back? I'll just put in the key and click. Click? Boom. Judgment! To ashes and dust shall you return. Sadako-chan, don't you think that was a little too much gunpowder? I hope Coach is alright. Chat Ruby fucking died. Next, we stop Oishi from showing up. Me this time? My name is Oishi Kuraido, a hot, good-looking middle-aged man who looks like a blues singer. Kaboom! Blow up his car! Me. Judgment for you. This is the best. This is the best. And, lest we forget, a follow-up service for my sister. Come here, big sis. There's a cute little doll for you. Aw, how nice. I'm not really understanding this. And, finally, we must quell Oyashiro-sama's anger. Then, will our last actor please come up? Tie him fast, wrap him up, and hang him. He'll sink for 3 days, right? Aw, the doll didn't blow up. I'm not that patient. Let's just get it over with. And with that, the case has been closed. The end. Oh no. All of a sudden, this arm of mine is glowing with an awesome power. This pile of corpses is a pretty big deal. That was a G Gundam reference, yes. That was a G Gundam reference. Huh? It's the phone. Hello? Oh, Keiji-kun. Thanks for all your work. Yeah. Looks like you're having a roaring old time. And yet here I am, busy with reading the scenario for the next story. Whatever. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let you off without any teasing. Is she on there? Can you put her on? What? You're going to announce it here? I wanted to keep it a secret for a while longer, but okay. A secret between Shion-san and Keiichi-san? What do you mean? Nobody told me about this. Nobody. Okay, Kei-chan. Let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. The main character of the next story will be Sonozaki Shion. What? Yes, so that's that. The one topping the popularity charts since her first appearance. The late appearing younger sister of the twins has been the Wait, what? The late appearing younger sister of the twins has been the pattern of things ever since the days of TH. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that means, and it doesn't matter. She's the younger twin by like a second or whatever, however it works. Anyway, I've been fired from my main character post for once. If the rumors are right, I might even get a portrait finally. Yahoo! Well, portraits of Kei-chan would be a big waste of disk space. If it couldn't all fit on one disc, there's a pretty high chance he'd be the first one dropped. Are you okay with this, Shion-san? The main character always meets some terrible fate in the end. Well, until now. But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen next time. With Tatarigoroshi, we're already at the third game in the Higurashi When They Cry series. This first half presented a lot of strange and exciting mysteries, but starting next time, the mysteries will start to be solved in the second half, marking the start of the investigation arc, temporary name. That means it'll be a thrilling story where I become a detective and solve all these crazy, unfair mysteries. You'd all better think up good signature phrases, like, "You, sir, are the criminal." It won't happen. Never. You'll get too close to the three families' secret, be imprisoned, and then get tortured. You're a shoo-in to meet a violent, unnatural death. Sis, I should say the same to you. Are you mentally prepared for me to see through all your mysteries and secrets, then have you apologize to me and commit suicide? No chance of Oyashiro-sama's curse for me, is there? Anyway, the news story to begin the second half, temporarily called Mikakushi, or Eye-Opening, is currently undergoing diligent development. We should be able to unveil it to you all in the near future, so I hope you'll look forward to it. Onikakushi, Wadaganashi, and Tatarigoroshi. What truths will you all come up with after reading these three stories? Or will you just come up with more questions instead of theories? Rena has no clue either. For all of you warriors who never yielded to these three mysteries and kept on fighting, we present you with one final scenario as thanks for your enthusiasm, of which we never originally planned on giving to you. Please enjoy it.